Our next panel is on the new media, the many ways that we talk to voters, the voters that are supporter and the voters that we need to join our coalition to win elections and to win on issues we matter. The moderator of this panel is Cliff Maloney, the CEO of Citizens Alliance. Many of you know him as the founder of PA Chase, one of the grassroots organizations that led the charge across the state to turn the page on mail-in balloting. I can throw out a lot of statistics about the work he's done, but I'll just highlight these. In his work in Pennsylvania, helping us in 2024 to deliver the state for President Trump, Stacey Garrity, Dave McCormick, and the rest of the ticket, they knocked on over 510,000 doors. And they increased our share and President Trump's share of mail-in ballots from 20% to almost 35%. He has talked the talk and walked the walk. Already, Cliff's organization has knocked on 8 million doors and helped win in over 400 elections. Someone that understands our values, someone understands how to win, and someone who understands to use the new technology to talk to supporters and activists. A great choice for a moderator for our next panel. I bring to you the founder of Pennsylvania Ballot Chase, Cliff Maloney.
All right, before we bring out our panelists, I just wanted to come out here and say thank you. A year ago, I came here as a kid from Delaware County, and we said we have this crazy idea. I said I hate mail-in ballots, but I said I hate losing more. And so we came up with a plan where we were going to hire 120 folks. We were going to knock on 500,000 doors, and only about half of you told me I was crazy, so I appreciate that. And we went out, and the results were simple. We had 10 Airbnbs across PA. We focused heavily right here in Scott Perry's congressional district is our top target. We had 2 other targets, PA8 and PA7 at the congressional level. And then obviously, you know, President Trump, you have Dave McCormick winning by 15,000 votes out of the millions that were cast. But the big promise I made here a year ago is I said, I want to be transparent. I said, we're going to knock the 500,000 doors, but how do we measure success? Okay, it's easy to just say, oh, Trump won, McCormick won, so it must have been impactful. And we said we're going to measure our success not by just knocking the 500,000 doors, but taking that mail-in share from 20% and getting it to 33%. We thought if we got 33% of the mail-in versus Harris, there was no way we could lose. We thought we could probably win with 30%, but let's aim for a number where we can deliver a victory. And so to all of you out there that chase ballots with our full-time chasers, I want to say thank you. Trump got 34.5% of the mail-in vote, and we won Pennsylvania. All right, so why am I moderating a panel on new media as the door-knocking guy? I'm announcing today we are doubling down on the PA Chase. We're going to knock another 500,000 this year. Yes, this year. And Mike, glad to have you here. Audience of one, I love it. So the Lancaster race, we can do a full deep dive to understand, you know, what happened there. But I do think that the loss in the special election proves to us that it doesn't matter how safe the race is. The Democrats are going to be organized, and they are going to run up the score on mail-in voting. And so we have to chase ballots in every election if these are the current rules. You guys want to fix the rules? Do that. I'll shut up and I'll go back to just door knocking, forget out the vote. But as the rules stand, where we have up to 50 days, the Democrats are taking advantage of it. And so we said, look, we're not going to wait until 2028. We're not going to wait until 2026. Josh Shapiro has 105 full-time paid staffers on the ground right now. Right now. They might not have a leader in the Democrat Party nationally. They might not have, you know, some sort of message that's resonating with voters. But this is serious business for them. Politics is a religion. It is their business. So I hate that I got to go out and raise another $3 million. We got to hire all these people. But if we don't do the PA Chase again this year, we give up a year. We give up all the gains that we made. So we're going to do 500,000 doors. We're going to hire 120 folks again. And where I need your help is I need to figure out where, who, and what are we knocking for. Because we know we need permanent infrastructure. If we want to make PA the next Ohio or the next Florida or the red wall that makes it so Democrats cannot win nationally, we have to continue building that infrastructure. So what we're doing is we're trying to identify 1,000 judge of elections that we can go out and chase ballots for. There's roughly 9,200 precincts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Who wants to take a guess at how many Republicans filed to run for judge of elections? The person who makes a decision on the ground at the precinct when it comes to voter integrity. How many people do you think filed? Pretty good guess. About 1,300. Now, some of the counties we don't have yet because they are what I call government-run counties. And so we have about 1,300, maybe we get to 1,500. So what that means, the Democrats only have a couple more than us. 40% of the judge of elections in Pennsylvania, nobody runs for. So the government appoints somebody, a government employee. We know they're usually Republicans, right? So we have this unique situation in PA where we have these judge of elections positions. Like I said, 9,200. If you stop in at the Citizens Alliance table, we'd love to give you instructions on running a write-in campaign for this primary that'll put your name on the ballot for the general. But we are doubling down on the PHAs in 2026. We've obviously got a major governor's race, and then in 2028, it's the Super Bowl. So we've got to be prepared for that. I want to pause right here and just say thank you again. I'm going to bring up our panelists, who you are definitely here to see, not me. But I want to talk about new media because what I found was that when we were able to go out there and really have a pulse with some of the new media and the personalities I'm going to introduce you to, it was such a great way to connect with the grassroots. It was such a great way to engage new voters and understand what are the topics that they care about. So please help me in welcoming Dr. Steve Turley and Jack Posobiec. What's going on today? All right, so we're going to dive right in here. I want to give each of these gentlemen 3 minutes to just open, tell a little about their story, and we're going to start with Jack, Mr. PA, by the way, from Norristown, PA.
All right.
He's got some street cred.
Welcome home. It's always good to be back. Hello, Pennsylvania. Hello, Harrisburg. And hello to if there's any members of the War Room Posse who happen to be around. I think there's a couple of posse members here. We're going to work on getting. We'll get 100% of you in the posse by hopefully by, if not the end of the speech, then certainly by the end of the night. You know, it's been an amazing ride. You know, I was born and raised in Norristown, Pennsylvania, like Cliff said. I was the Temple University in Philadelphia College Republican chairman, and I believe that the current Temple University College Republican president. He was here earlier. Are you here right now? Is he here? He's around. He's working the tables. So it's amazing to see. Yes, believe it or not, there are actually college Republicans at Temple University. And believe it or not, though, because I just got done an event up in Penn State with Charlie Kirk during the election, we had 3,000 students come out. There is something happening on campus, and it's incredible. Seriously, yeah, please, give it up. The kids are all right. The kids are all right. The kids are shifting in our direction. We saw that in the election. We saw that nationwide as well. But that's how I got my start, Temple College Republicans. I was then the Pennsylvania Executive Director of the College Republicans. This was 2006. I went on. Then I kind of got out of it for a while, joined the military, joined the United States Navy, and then somehow got into conservative politics when President Trump started running. But all I got to say, I've always said this, Pennsylvania is the play. The Keystone State is the key to winning the country. And I for years, I would try to explain this to the leaders of the Republican Party, and nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to listen. Nobody believed. They said, it's out of reach, it's out of reach, it's out of reach, because they didn't understand Pennsylvania. They didn't understand our voters. They didn't understand particularly the western part of the state, the working class voters who may be registered as Democrats, who may, by and large, are registered as Democrats, or nowadays are registered as independents. Of course, as we know in 2024, we've been turning them all Republican, because it was through Donald Trump and through the shift of making our party into this non-establishment, breaking through the mold of sort of the old way of things and turning it into that workers, populist nationalist kind of government and kind of party that we're fighting for. That's what got people on board. So no wonder, like a Mitt Romney wasn't going to win here, or a John Kasich wasn't going to win here. This is a new kind of party. And if we continue to embrace that and continue to go forward, I'm here to tell you right now, and I'm here to tell Josh Shapiro, a little 5'3" Josh Shapiro, that Pennsylvania is going to be a red state.
Well, first of all, I think 5'3" is very tall. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know where he's coming from.
Wait, I used to think Josh Shapiro was short. I used to think he was short until I met President Zelensky a couple weeks ago.
You're putting me in bad company here. All right. This is an honor. I am in the greater Philly area. That's whenever I'm traveling abroad. That's what I always say, because they don't know that when I say I'm from Delaware, they have no idea where that is. I just tell them it's 20 minutes from Biden's basement, and then they get an idea. And if it's, you go out on the porch, and if it's quiet enough, you can actually hear him snoring. It's really cute. But I got into the new media very much like right around the time Jack did. I was in academia for 20 years. And I remember when I was getting my PhD, it was during the Obama years, I had studied a lot of national populism and nationalist populist movements around the world. But they were primarily European, India, the BJP party with Modi, as many people interpret Putin that way. And it was the Obama years, so I thought, well, these movements are never going to come here. And I can still remember to this day listening to or reading about the three themes that every populist movement hit: border security, economic security, and cultural security. And I said, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? And a few years later go by, and this brash billionaire comes down that escalator and gets in front of the world and gives a 50-minute speech. Guess, if you analyze it, guess what the three themes were? Border security, economic security, and cultural security. And I remember, so this is summer 2015, and I asked my colleague at the school that I was teaching at, who's in charge of marketing, I said, I'm listening to a lot of conservative talk radio guys who didn't quite know how to make sense of Trump. They were still very, pro Ted Cruz or Rand Paul, or what have you. They were very ideologically conservative. I guess, I think Marco Rubio was really popular back then. And they didn't know what sense to make of Trump. So it drove me crazy. And so I asked my colleague, I just feel like the only way I can make the voices stop in my head is if I could somehow get out there and get these three themes out and say, this is what Trump is. He's a nationalist, populist, traditionalist. And he said, well, why don't you start a YouTube channel? And I was more or less like, what's that? And he showed me how to do it. He showed me how to load up my first video. And so that's what I did. I started making videos just trying to explain Trump in a way that I thought was missing in a lot of what passed as conservative radio. I mean, if you remember at the time, Glenn Beck hated him. Glenn Beck was viscerally opposed to him. So I did that. And then I said, you know what? I got bold. I said, I think he's going to win. And I said, I think this was after June 23rd of that year, 2016. It's after Brexit. And Trump even said, call me Mr. Brexit. And Boris Johnson at the time said, Brexit will make Britain great again. So I said, look, these are all the themes that's going on here. There is a worldwide revolt against liberal globalism. And liberal globalism hits us at security points that we were guaranteed as a nation state. Solid, secure borders, a thriving economy that helps the middle class, and celebrating our traditions, not denigrating them as racist and bigoted and so on. So I got bold. I talked about that. He won. I got to gloat. And then I asked my 40 followers, do you want me to keep going? And they said, yeah, keep going. This is great, because there were elections later on in Moldova and Bulgaria. There was another one in the Netherlands with Geert Wilders, who eventually won. And so I kept going, and here we are, 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube. So it was a miracle. I got to even quit my job. I'm not in academia anymore, which I do not miss at all, I gotta say.
Well, let me make
Who's happier about that? You or that?
It's mutual.
It's mutual.
So two comments. When we launched our program here in PA, I was going out doing media, and I asked both of them to come today because there was something very different about their audiences. If I did different shows, and this is not a shot at anybody, but you might get a couple people that reach out, they want to knock doors, they want to donate, they want to get involved. There was something different about what both of you have built. When I would go on and you guys would analyze what we were doing with the PHAs, and you would turn to your audience and say, this is the most important thing we can be doing, get involved. I want you guys to talk a little bit about, how do you build that audience of people who are not just watching because it's red meat, they're watching because they're learning and they trust what you're telling them. Talk to me about building that audience, and why is that so different from typical, cable and the legacy media?
So, I'm sort of a creature of social media, and certainly how the media describes me. That would be nicer than what most of the media describes me as. But it's that idea with social media, and that's really where I built my foundation, built my house, was on Twitter, now X, and I've been on there for, believe it or not, 13 years now at this point. And through social media, what you can do differently than on any other form of media is that you can build that direct connection with the audience. So you can directly respond to comments. It's interactive. You can actually sort of meet people in a sense. You can have that immediate gratification for a listener or for an interactive participant, a follower, a subscriber, whichever you pick your poison of social media you're using. And that's something you don't get on television. That's something you don't get on radio. It's something you just don't get really anywhere else. And in fact, there's entire great live streamers on various different platforms, and everyone does it now, where all they do is respond to comments. They don't even have like a show that they're doing. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's incredible because it's connecting people in a way that's direct, it's immediate, and it's giving that authenticity that you're not getting, because that's what people want. People were so sick of the polished corporate legacy media, and we're sick of the lies. And believe me, I grew up reading the Philadelphia Inquirer, so I know a little bit about media lying, okay? I think the prerequisite to work at the Inquirer is, the filthy Inquirer, is that you don't tell the truth. And so it's with that authenticity on social media that, and now I've grown to over 3 million followers just on X, and I've picked up on Real America's Voice streaming, and actually, and God bless them, but I'm now also carried nationwide on the Salem Radio Network. And so it's been an incredible ride, incredible to see, but it's the only thing that I guess I could say is it's that authenticity that's the key. It's the authenticity.
Steve?
Kudos to that. I guess scholars call it parasocial relationships. That's the technical term there.
Wait, don't tell them that.
And what it is, and I think we all felt it with Rush. If you remember, there was a sense you just felt Rush was your friend when you would listen to him. And I think he was a guy ahead of his time in that sense. And it was never polished. It was just literally like a two-man studio. And he talked to you like he understood you. And then there was a sense, this parasocial is, well, they're not my friend that I hang out with, but they're not these superstar, polished celebrities and so forth. They're in between. So I bet I would speak for Jack. When we meet our audience and our fans, it feels like I've known you for a long time. There's just a connection there. And you're right, they don't want these polished productions. They basically see us, I think, in many ways as like Skype, a Skype call coming in, but it's only kind of one way, or they get to comment and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we're tapping into is a whole different form of relationship. And what we're finding is the left can't really do it. I think it's largely because the left is so elite. It's so aristocracy oriented, whereas the populist movement is of the people. We're all on the same side. You've got Elon and Trump At one time, you might have thought they'd be at opposite sides. As a matter of fact, at one time they were. But that's only if you're looking at it horizontally, left versus right. But if you're looking at vertically, people versus permanent political class, right? Ordinary Americans versus oligarchs, as it were. All of a sudden, a lot of people would not have been on the same side are. And so I think that's what makes our movement so amazing, is that it brings people from all different walks of life. We're all united in a love of faith, family, and freedom.
You know, one thing that was fascinating to me during the cycle was I think this was the first presidential election where it wasn't just based on people getting their media, you know, from the same three networks, right? The message from the same three networks. And I mean, even Trump, Barron Trump, was the one that got him to do, you know, some of the podcasts, right? And I think I realized it when my dad was sending me Instagram reels of Harris. I mean, just, or some, I mean, we've all seen these, right? Just not being able to put a sentence together. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this might be a bigger moment because everybody is. You're taking in information. I'm not talking about the people in this room, right? We're all tuned in to politics. But when normal people are getting information from this decentralized type of communities or different shows, I just think it had a tremendous impact, and I think it helps, you know, the working class. It helps the blue collar that are usually just fed, you know, spoon-fed one message. Yeah. What do you guys think is the future? Like, how does this progress in terms of legacy media, you know, having its final breath? Is it on this trajectory? Is it going to be a slow kind of failing? Do a couple of the networks stay alive? What does that look like? Does AI play into any of that? Like, give me kind of your thoughts on predictions.
So, you know, I think we're going to see the trend of decentralization continue. I mean, think about it, right? It's the television model is going the way of the dinosaur, the only being on there. And think of it, right? Part of the issue with that was because there was such a high cost to be on television, to be able to be a broadcaster, to actually be able to put that all together. That doesn't exist with social media. I can pop up on Twitter and all I need is an internet connection, and then I go up. And people ask me all the time, they say, do you use special apps and third-party stuff, or what do you do? I said, no, it's literally just me going on my phone on my account, typing out a tweet, and that's it. That's all that I do. And you know, the issue, though, I guess I would say going forward is because there are so many different things that are out there, what it's created is a loss of shared self and a loss of shared new traditions. And so you have people that are totally split into different bubbles and different camps, and it's almost like pick your own adventure for which type of news you want to follow. And then the only question, of course, is which one comports more with reality. And so people realized television wasn't comporting with reality. Print media was not comporting with reality. And I've seen some of them try to fix this. They can't. They constitutionally are not able to do it because they're never going to be able to beat a guy who can go up on Twitter and get a video of, you know, Hillary Clinton falling out at the 9/11 rally or the 9/11 memorial, and they have to chuck her in the side of a van like a piece of beef. And but think about it. Think about it. Think about it though. That video,
That's
right?
being
That video
mean to beef.
It is, I know. But that video, right? What's so seminal about that video is this was the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah.
Okay? 9/11, 2016. All of the mainstream media was there. All the cameras were there. All the print reporters were there. All the journalists was there. Who got that video? Zdenek Garza, a firefighter who was on his day off from Jersey City that had come over and happened to view all this, films it on his phone, and he posts it to Twitter. Yeah. And he changed history. Yeah. They're never going to be able to compete with that. Number one, because what he did is cheaper and far more effective. And number two, because they would never show it.
Mm. Wow.
Steve, your predictions.
Yeah, it's we ain't seen nothing yet, I think, in many ways. I mean, we're in the midst of what scholars call a third industrial revolution, and the media is caught in the doom loop of an ending age of a second industrial revolution. So, your first industrial, we're going to 18th century, that's the textiles getting mechanized and so forth, mass produced. And then the second industrial revolution is when you scale that mass production to literally every industry, right? Ford and the assembly lines. The third industrial revolution is a digital revolution. It's the revolution of cyberspace. And what's so fascinating with that one is it's not limited by time and space now. And there's no gatekeepers in this world either. I like to use the example, when I was in, Jack and I were talking earlier about being in Baltimore. I went to school in Baltimore. I used to work at the George Peabody Library. Has anyone ever seen the George Peabody Library?
I've seen the George Peabody
It's
Library.
one of the most beautiful buildings. If you can survive Baltimore, I would absolutely recommend going to see
early,
George Peabody.
try to go early.
Go really early. Bring a bulletproof vest. Go to My Patriot Supply. And
From code post.
no, Turley. And so if you go there, you're going to be blown away because you walk in and they call it the Cathedral of Books. And it's so beautiful. I mean, it entails 300,000 books. And they go up these stacks, up into the sky. It's very heavenly. It's very spiritual. But besides the beauty of it, back in the day, in that late 19th century it was built, it was necessary utility. If I wanted to access 300,000 books, I had to go to George Peabody Library, right? How many digital books can I access with this?
All of them.
Literally, right? 100 million. 100 million books in the palm of my hand. In 5 years, it could be 1 billion. Cyberspace doesn't care because, at least theoretically, it's infinitely scalable. And so what has this done? This rise of this third industrial revolution. It has blown the legacy media's business model to smithereens. Because the legacy media is rooted in information monopolization. Back in the day, I had to go to the media to find out information because they had a privileged access to that information I didn't have. And I had to go to them for information, just like I had to go to George Peabody Library if I wanted 300,000 books. But now, with this world that's rising, that information has been radically decentralized and dispersed and democratized. And now you and I have access to the exact same information that anyone at CNN has. So what does that mean? It's exactly what Jack just said. Now we get to fact check CNN. Everyone in this room has the power now to fact check CNN, and they've been found wanting, if I might put it mildly. So all I can say is I think their business model and their days are over, just like the days of the Second Industrial Revolution. Some may survive, some may not. But newspaper circulation today is its lowest level since World War II. All networks combined plus cable channels combined cannot get the audience that Walter Cronkite could get in one night. And that was with a population of 200 million. Now we're at almost 350 million. They're going the way of the dodo bird. We're just getting started.
Let me ask you guys to each close here two pieces of advice or two categories. One would be anybody interested, in creating content, right? Getting involved. Any advice to them? And then two, Jack, you hit on this a little bit, but there's so much noise out there, right? So how do you dissect? How do you figure out, what it is that you want to kind of consume? I know you're going to say just turn on Real America's Voice for 9 hours a day. But any advice to content creators and just how to dissect through it?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, once you've, picked out your phone, gone to your podcast app and subscribed to Human Events Daily, and then, of course, checked out The War Room, where we get the signal, not the noise. The key is this. You want to find a lane, right? You want to find a niche. You want to find certain things that you can speak cleverly about. This is something that you're knowledgeable about. So a lot of people try to be generalists online, and I think this is foolish. I think this is really foolhardy. You want to be someone who's understood for your specialized knowledge on some certain issue. Now, it might be cultural, it might be a technical issue. My brother's here, he's a woodworker, so he does stuff about woodworking and stuff. And so the idea being that when there's so much noise out there, someone has to be able to explain what's actually happening. What's the geostrategic analysis? What's actually going on behind the scenes in Washington, D.C., which is something I do to quite an extent. That's another thing. Other people are big on homesteading. The Maha movement, for example. Maha movement is the most popular movement in America today. It is more popular than MAGA. It is more popular than either of the parties. And if people do not understand the power of the Maha movement and the ability for everyone, and every mom and every wife and grandmom and everything else, aunts and whatever in the country, they love this thing. I guarantee you it is female driven. And so understanding that all of these are different nodes for you to get involved socially, for you to get involved online, then you start to build up your trust. You got to be interesting. You got to build up those networks, got to build up those relationships like we were talking about, those connections. And then, this is key, consistency. People say, how do you get so many followers, Jack? I said, I did it every single day for 13 years. I did every day for 13 years, day in and day out, and I stayed consistent, and I never quit, I never changed. People know me from way back when. They'll say, yeah, he's the same, he's just more. And if you have that authenticity, but be interesting, people will follow you, people will come, but to Turley's point, we're not going anywhere. Yeah. We're just getting started. The sky's the limit. And the information war is now being waged on these little pieces of glass in our pockets. So politically speaking, if you are involved and you want to move the needle, you must become adept at social media or you will die in the process.
Right. Yeah, well, that was gold right there. That's awesome.
It's a Game of Thrones line.
If you have a smartphone, you're already a cameraman. And if you have a social media platform, you're already a commentator. So there you go. You already have it. Right? That's the beauty of this democratization. In terms of the knowledge element to it, obviously, expert epistemology has collapsed. Right? Fauci did more to destroy, I think, the political class than any one person on the planet. That is when the mask got ripped off. That's when everyone saw that these so-called experts are actually dictating to us. They're not teaching us. They're not informing us. They're dictating to us. So that's when you start to get into much more of a democratic epistemology, form of knowledge. So how do you know something is true? One of the key ways is what's called corroboration. Are different people from different walks of life all coming to the same conclusion? It's known as technically critical realism. That's generally what we do. I see something on Twitter, I go, ooh, that looks interesting. And the first thing I say is, I gotta wait till it's corroborated. I don't wanna just go run with it. I wanna see somebody else go, yeah, here's another source for the same conclusion. So it's that kind of corroboration that's gonna help you sort things out. But the days of the experts are over. Well, I think one of the reasons why Joe Rogan just seems to embody this new media so well is because I think the days of us being lectured to are over. Because we have the same access, the same information as anyone at any of these big media outlets are, it's not lecturing to us anymore. They're learning right along with us. They're not dictating to us. They're discovering with us. You see, they're not trying to control. They're trying to inspire curiosity. And so that's where we are today. I think we are the only media that is going to survive in an age of what's technically called techno-populism, where technologies are freeing us from the old liberal industrial order. The only media that's going to survive is a media that's ultimately accountable to you, a media that is accountable to the people. And the reason why I think the legacy media is dying is because it refuses to be accountable to you. It refuses to apologize. It refuses to admit, yeah, we lied to you about Biden's acuity. Yeah, we lied to you about it. They refuse, and we know it. And now they're actually throwing him under the bus and pretending as if, oh, well, I did. That's so strange. Oh, and you're like, we all saw it 4 years ago. We saw the guy had to be shoveled in everywhere he went. So I think any media that's not ultimately accountable to the people will not be able to survive a new era of techno-populism where media has to learn with you, it has to discover with you, and it has to awaken a sense of curiosity and awe.
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for these two and everything they've done for our movement.
And for Cliff Maloney as well.
And Cliff!
PHAs.
Very good job. Great job.